After months of sitting around gaming, Jeffrey's finally mustered up enough motivation to hit the gym. He's in the squat rack doing curls, and he keeps complaining. Oh, this is so hard, man, my arm hurts. I hate doing curls. He gets 6 reps in and just drops the weight, and then he just goes on his phone. I don't even need the gym, I'll just go on a diet instead. I'm gonna go home now. Adonis has tricked his brain into loving hard work. He's in the gym doing a killer leg day, squatting 500 kilograms for reps. This is so painful. That's good. I can only get stronger from the pain. He finishes his set and slams the weight back onto the rack. For most people, this would be too much, but Adonis relishes in it. You wanna know a secret about me? I was a pussy for about 23 years of my life. A grade A. I was a coward. I was one of those kids who, instead of, in the sports class like PE in school, it is fucked, in it. Like, you only do exercise for 1 hour a week in school. We had this, right? And, oh, it's time to play sports. It's time to do some shit, right? I wasn't even, like the fat kid who got picked last or anything. I was the kid who didn't even bring his clothes in, so that I had to just kind of sit there in my uniform instead, because I didn't like exercise. I didn't like the way that it would feel. When it came down to studying, let's say I had an exam in a few days, I wouldn't do it. Now, that exam may have been important, and it probably was so needed for me to just sit down and do some work, and I wouldn't do it because it just felt too hard, and I needed something easier, like playing RuneScape. And even on RuneScape, a video game that I was addicted to, I still needed to go and do the easier things. I didn't even do any of the really hard quests. And if I was gonna do one, I would autistically follow like a YouTube tutorial, take me hours, and I hated it. I just wanted to do like the easier stuff, like just sit around and just talk to people next to the bank. When you compare that younger version of myself to where I am today, to the body that I've built over 1,000, maybe 2,000 workouts, to the global movement, the cult that we have created here, the leader that I have become, it's like two different people. Oh yeah, it's boasting and stuff, but I've become very successful. And there's a formula that you can follow that took me from the pussy who didn't want to do anything hard or difficult to the guy who just like, this is all I do now. And it doesn't even feel hard anymore. It feels like just fun to do. There's 2 ways to trick your brain into loving hard work. But first, we'll begin with some words from Adonis. You may only discover the purpose in hard work if you are working hard. The first strategy that you can use to transform your life forever and actually get into doing these hard things like studying, working on a business, and actually making some money so you can provide for your family, getting into the gym and building a good body. The first thing is to improve your mental health. What we see around the world today is this global problem of young men's mental health being absolutely trash. There is a guy that you know who will kill himself within a couple of months. You probably know who it is. Now, that's obviously the extreme side of this, but even the average guy has such poor mental health these days that even things that shouldn't feel hard actually do. Because when we really break this down, how would we even think something is hard? I know this is a silly question. How do we know something is hard? Well, it's our mental perception of it. It's our brain, it's our mind telling us that that thing is hard. So if we improve our mental health and we improve our mind, surely what our mind would think is hard would start to increase. We would have higher standards for what is difficult. And this is definitely true because you've seen this. If you've had this period of depression, like a lot of guys have had, or if you've seen this in some friends, some people, when they're depressed, they think that brushing their teeth is hard. When you have shit mental health, brushing your teeth is hard. I'm sat with my best friend and he told me the story that for a long time, he barely was brushing his teeth, maybe once a week, whilst he was a video game addict.
Yeah, there would be periods of time where I would seriously not actually have any sort of motivation or energy to do the very basic things such as personal hygiene, cleaning up my living space, brushing my teeth, bathing, anything like that. 2-week periods at a time sometimes, which holy crap.
With poor mental health, the smallest things feels difficult. And so right now you might be thinking, okay, this isn't for me. I'll click off, I'll watch a different video, or I'll skip forward because my mental health isn't bad. The thing is, if you've even got average mental health, well then an average thing would be difficult. If you can make your mind strong, then the higher thing, like the really difficult thing, would be the thing that you would be slightly challenged with. So if right now you think, oh no, my mind's fine right now, it's okay, you're still being limited by it because we are ambitious young men. Saying that my mental health is, oh yeah, it's okay right now, it's not enough. We want a strong mind. So the first real thing that you can do to drastically improve how difficult of a life you could live and, to do these hard things, improve your mental health. And I have a full guide that you can go and watch. It'll be linked right now. If you haven't seen it, it's like 2 hours of me breaking down exactly how to improve your mental health. Go and watch that right now. The second thing that you can do to trick your brain into liking hard things, and the thing that got me famous, is to get onto a dopamine detox. Now, you saw dopamine detoxing, this trend that was popping maybe a while while back, and maybe you've seen like scientists talk about it and say, yeah, it's not even scientific, it's not even true or anything, right? If you watch those videos, maybe you know it's like, we're not scientists here. I'm not saying that, oh yeah, the real dopamine molecule, I don't give a fuck what the dopamine molecule is. This is how it works in the real world, and we're using the word dopamine, even though we're not very scientific, just because it like, I don't know, it sounds nice. But it's like, it's relatively true. All the scientists who have broken down the dopamine detox arguments have said that it's not totally right in the way that people talk about it in this context, but it's not that far from the truth. So dopamine detoxing is when you drastically take a step back from the things that are giving you like a lot of dopamine, and usually these are the bad habits like porn, video games, junk food, and drugs. I want you to imagine this right now. Imagine you completely just stopped all of those bad habits. Imagine just straight away how much your life would improve, and straight away you might be getting a sense of sadness like, no, but I don't really want to stop playing video games, and like, but I like smoking weed sometimes, and those things can be okay. Like, it can be fun to do those, but a lot of the fun that comes from those things is because you don't find the rest of your life fun. Because let's say that you were living such a fun life, a perfect dream life without like, you know, these bad habits, right? Well, at that point, you wouldn't consider those bad habits like video games to be as fun with you. The issue with a lot of guys is that they're so committed, so deep in this rabbit hole of instant gratification, of these bad dopamines, these bad habits like video games, porn, junk food, that now the rest of their world doesn't feel fun. And some guys are so extreme, so deep in this rabbit hole that even the bad habit doesn't even feel fun anymore. This is when you're a guy who's been playing video games for so long, and even your favorite video games aren't even fun anymore. This is a problem for a lot of guys. You can probably relate, because that's a fucked feeling when you log into that game again and it literally just bores you, and you spend the 20 minutes looking through your list of like 500 Steam games that you've been buying on the sales. You know something's wrong with your brain. So the act of dopamine detoxing, it changed my life forever, because this was what I was feeling just before I transformed my life forever. In May 2020, I was living in the worst lifestyle possible. I was waking up, and you know the first thing that I would do? Fap. You know, the second thing I would do? Smoke weed. The third thing? Eat junk food. I would do these things at the start of the day, which meant that obviously the rest of the day I'm like so fatigued and, you know, like so dizzy, not dizzy, but like, you know what I mean, like faded, right? I wasn't doing anything productive. And when I lived like that for just not that long, couple of months, I hated my life. I discovered this concept of dopamine detoxing and realized that I needed to take drastic change. I moved out of the apartment that I was staying in. I broke up with my girlfriend. I moved back into my parents' home and went full extreme on dopamine detoxing. And you know what I did? You know what you can copy? What I did was I created a timetable, just like the one you see on the screen. And you don't need to copy it exactly. You know, our times can differ and the things you do differ, but I created more like my perfect day. And I just started trying to copy that every single day. This timetable perfectly encapsulated the dopamine detox that I wanted to do, because I took out the bad habits and I just left in the good ones. You want to know how this will help you with the hard things? Well, once there's no easy things for you to do, very easy, stimulating, pleasurable things, those hard things feel less hard, because leveling up your strength skill on RuneScape is infinitely easier than going to the gym. Your brain and especially your body find it easy to be on a video game and just play, but to go and do those things in the real world is very hard. And so when you have this like comparison, those real world things feel so difficult, you need to take a step back from those bad habits. And then it's time to challenge yourself and drastically increase the hard things. This is something that not a lot of guys do. But let's say there's something difficult for you right now, which is to go for a run. You can run maybe about 3 kilometers and it's like, that's enough. You're not going to run anymore for the week or something, right? Set yourself the goal to do something very hard. Run a 10K within 2 months from now. You've set this hard goal. Now suddenly it's time to step up to the challenge. And when you hit that 10K and you've been running for almost an hour straight for the 10K, well, that 3K run is going to seem quite easy now, isn't it? But that was just hard for you previously. You need to do something even harder so that the current hard thing doesn't feel hard anymore. You know, the first time that I went camping as an adult, I particularly chose a night where there was going to be a thunderstorm, and I fucking hate the cold and the rain. The first time I went camping, there was a storm, lightning, everything. I was soaked. I literally slept like freezing cold, wet. You know why I did that? Because I knew that if I started with the extreme thing, if and when I ever go camping again and it's a little bit cold, it doesn't even matter. I've experienced the hard thing already. And the same with fighting. So when I did kickboxing, I would go into the cage with the guy in my gym who used to be like our fighter. Like he was the one going to win, fight, you know, amateur bouts with other people. And he was very, very good. Like he had the highest cardio. Like we all had like a scoreboard, right? Imagine this guy is ultra fit, very skilled. I would go into the cage with him. They lock the cage behind you. You've got to survive for 3 minutes. He beat my ass, obviously. And I remember remember he would blitz me. I'd be like cowering up in the cage and he'd just fucking blitz me. But you want to know how that was such a good thing for me? Because after that, I'd step out of the cage, have a rest for a minute, and go spar someone else who wasn't as good as him. And that other guy now seemed a lot slower than he originally was. You need to go and do even harder things than you're currently challenging yourself with. There's a video on dopamine detoxing that I made where I went in detail about my story and like the degenerate stuff I was doing, like watching porn and smoking weed every day. If you want to hear like the real specific story, there was a 2-year dopamine detox experience video that I made. You can go and look at that right now. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Mwah.